we see good results. And that's why studies show 170 diseases right now have a positive effect from molecular hydrogen. And people say, how is that possible? Well, I hope when we discuss its effect on biology, physiology, its effect on a cellular mitochondrial level, you can see that it has a positive effect on everything that you would study, because where we have a positive effect on the smaller structures in our body. If we keep those healthy, everything else will be healthy too.
Welcome to Peak Human Labs, where I share amazing interviews with incredible human beings who are leaders in how to optimize your health and get you to peak mental, physical, and mental state. My name is Dr. Sanjeev Goyal. I'm a physician for the past 20 years, specializing in longevity, precision medicine, and biohacking. And my mission is to alleviate the suffering we all face and will encounter when dealing with illness, sadness, and loss. And to this end, I'm sharing these conversations with people who can shed light on how to live more purposefully and intentionally so that you can be inspired and create your own path to wellness and fulfillment. Hi, everyone. Dr. Goyal from Peak Human Labs. And today my guest is Dr. Mike Van Thielen. He is a PhD in holistic nutrition, an expert in molecular hydrogen, which we'll be talking about today, and as well a whole bunch of other topics on improving your health. But today we'll be focusing on molecular hydrogen. There's a lot of evidence out there that it can improve your health. So we're going to really get down, understand how it works, and how it can help you be in the top of your physical condition. We'll see you on the other side. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Doc?
Good. Thank you so much for joining me today. We just met at the anti-aging conference in Vegas,
Right.
and I learned something about I never heard before: the benefits of molecular oxygen on the body. And I know specifically even another version of taking it in. But before we get into that and talk about that, do you mind like telling our viewers a little bit about your background? I know you have a huge number of accomplishments. If you could just take us through that so they can get understanding about who you are and the authority that you speak with.
Yeah, I do have an accent, as you can hear. I'm originally from Belgium, came here in 1997 as a licensed physical therapist. Worked in several clinics and decided to go outside of the physical therapy realm. I got my license in acupuncture, doctor of oriental medicine, board certified in Chinese herbs, homeopathy, and all that stuff, which
Mhm.
was nice for a year. But after another, 1,000 patients, I realized that these quote unquote alternative therapies were indeed less invasive than conventional medicine, meaning drugs, surgeries, and injections. But I didn't get the long lasting results either. So I had to go back to basics, and that's when I got my PhD in holistic nutrition. And I also started to look at Mother Nature to see what animals in the wild did, because they usually have a better answer than the second opinion of a doctor, believe it or not. I got very confident in helping people, not just to overcome disease, but also getting them to that next level. Fast forward, I've been writing books. I got about 10 books. I've been on keynotes, on stages as a keynote speaker, biohacking conferences. I was just at the A4M where I talked about molecular hydrogen. And so I try to create that awareness through education, through books, and through speeches. And today I'm a mentor in the longevity biohacking space.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's start talking about hydrogen. Maybe tell us like how did you first even find out about the hydrogen? Because this
Yeah,
is that's something that's we
sure.
talk a lot about.
I stay on top of whatever's out there, and a decade ago, it had some research and there was some things going on, but it wasn't mainstream yet, and it's still not mainstream. But more and more physicians at least start to know about it, and there's more and more manufacturers and equipment available in the United States. But initially, it was all about hydrogen water, because
Hmm.
even today, most of the studies were done with hydrogen water. But we learned today that inhalation is much more effective because we can get a much higher concentration in our body in the same time frame, right? So
Hmm.
from a therapeutic point of view, the inhalation is much more powerful. But currently there's about 1,200 scientific studies, white papers out there, and about 200 of them are human studies. So it is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I did do a cursory look at the literature, and you're right. There's lots out there, looking like a lot, especially from Japan,
Hmm.
places that are not traditionally North American. sources, but it looks like they're ahead of us in the science of hydrogen water.
Yes, and that's mostly because they get budgets to do that research, and over here the big pharma is not interested in something they can't patent and make billions on. So that explains while the research on those types of things usually don't happen here in the United States.
Hmm. Okay, so let's take me through about what is hydrogen. I mean, we've heard of hydrogen bombs and hydrogen balloons and
Yeah.
things like that. What is this molecule? I know it's ubiquitous, probably it's the
Well,
most common element.
we gotta make a
Most,
distinguishment between hydrogen and what we're talking about. What we're gonna talk
yes,
about is hydrogen gas or molecular
yes,
hydrogen, right?
yes.
Because hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. It's the number one component of stars, and it's obviously a key component in water and organic compounds. In volume, it only takes up 0.00005% of the universe, but it's the smallest element, so it's actually the most abundant element. And so a hydrogen atom, if you remember school, it's the first element on a periodic table, one electron, one proton.
Mhm,
So we don't have to go into the chemistry, but molecular hydrogen or hydrogen gas is basically a covalent bond, which is a strong bond between two hydrogen atoms.
mhm,
And the hydrogen atoms share their electron. And so that bond is a very strong bond, so it takes a lot of energy to break it down. But more importantly, it makes it neutral because H plus, the proton, is highly reactive. H minus, the hydride, is highly reactive. But the
mm.
molecular hydrogen or the gas is neutral, so it's not reactive, it's very stable.
When hydrogen exists, let's say bounded in molecular form, let's say to a carbon or something, it's not a gas.
Many times H minus are hydrides, and in
Mm,
chemistry, hydrides means there's an extra electron, and they're important in chemistry, not just for energy production in our body, but also uh, hydrides can donate an electron to other molecules. For example,
mm,
antioxidants that donate a molecule to free radicals. So that's why hydrides H minus is important. H plus we know from the acid, the role of acidity in our body, alkaline acidity, very important. We know that our blood is 7.35, 7.445, but we also know that small fluctuations can cause big trouble and disease in our body. And that's what pH is. pH stands for potential of hydrogen, right? The more
mm,
H plus in a solution, the more acidic the solution, and the more alkaline the solution. These are both very reactive, but when we combine two atoms, it becomes neutral. And that's the power of molecular hydrogen, what we talk about today, because it is the lightest and smallest element and it is not charged. So, unlike any other antioxidants, it easily can diffuse through tissues and through the cell membrane, entering the cell and exerting its positive and protective and therapeutic properties within the cell at its source, the source of many of the diseases that we see. So
mhm,
that separates molecular hydrogen from anything else, vitamin C, vitamin D, and it's able to get in the cell and protect our DNA, RNA, proteins, mitochondria, and the list goes on.
mhm. So right now, water is, I guess, primarily how we're obtaining hydrogen. Is that right?
No,
Or
that's
how
not
we?
correct. That's not
Okay,
correct. Our body makes hydrogen as a
okay.
result of our gut bacteria,
Mm,
breaking down fibers and foods. That's how we get
mm,
hydrogen in our body, which then helps with the digestive system. But when
mhm,
our diet is a little bit not optimal, or our digestive system is sluggish, or we're just aging, time is a bee. We obviously have lower levels of hydrogen, which affects our cellular and biochemical processes. So, making sure we have a lot of hydrogen in our body, which we do through hydrogen inhalation or drinking water, is a very smart thing to do.
But how would one know if they, let's say, if one is not making enough hydrogen or one is in a deficient state? Is there any way to know that
No,
answer?
there's no way to know, but that's really a separate issue because when you're aging, when you don't have all the energy you want, when there's a disease state, when there's oxidative stress, when there is inflammation, hydrogen can neutralize all of those. And as you know, we're producing toxins and waste products and oxidative stress, on a daily basis just by living. And so hydrogen has, according to those studies, many powerful properties, including it's a selective antioxidant, strong anti-inflammatory, and the list goes on. It promotes autophagy, apoptosis, and so it has an effect on all these processes that are damaging, especially the oxidative stress, but it can manage those and neutralize those inside the cell, which is the source of many of those diseases and ailments.
Hmm. We always talk about like these super antioxidants like superoxide dismutase and all that. Do this rely on hydrogen to be effective?
Well, yeah, no, hydrogen, again, it all depends, right? Because, for example, electromagnetic radiation and frequency, we know it causes damage on a cellular level because it opens the floodgates for calcium. So we get too
Mm.
much calcium inside the cell, and
Yeah.
that increases superoxide, which then binds with nitric oxide to form peroxynitrite, which is a very harmful free radical.
Hmm.
So when we have too much free radicals like hydroxyl free radicals or peroxynitrate inside the cell, it causes all kinds of diseases, even cancer. Because let's look at cancer. The cancer always starts with a mutation of our nuclear DNA and mitochondrial DNA, right? And what causes that mutation? Well, the ROS, reactive oxygen species, like hydroxyl free radicals. So we have this molecular hydrogen, that easily gets into the cell and neutralizes those free radicals. And there's no other antioxidants that can enter the cell easily without any problems and start neutralizing that oxidative stress at its source.
So a lot of these free radicals are all OH hydroxyl. Is that what you're saying?
Mhm, mhm.
And this hydrogen comes and basically binds and neutralizes, forms into water.
Makes water. You got it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Correct.
so
There's your basic chemistry.
that's basically that. I think that's important to understand. Yeah. So basically, you're saying that the research had been done that yes, this looks like drinking this hydrogenated water had health benefits because it was providing more of this antioxidant activity,
Yes.
and inhalation would provide much more amount. That's why at least I learned at the conference. Like we're talking about, I don't know, 100 times more, something like that. Like how much more
Well,
about?
it depends. So if you want to do the math, there's different machines, right? And they produce different flow rates. So,
Mhm,
for example, the one you saw there had a 600 flow rate. What it
mhm,
means, it produces 600 cc's per minute. But from that 600 cc's, only 4% is hydrogen, because hydrogen becomes explosive, flammable at 4.3%. That's why they use it as part of rocket fuel, right? So we
yeah.
only can have 4% in there. So 4% of 600 is 24. So in 1 minute, we would inhale 24 cc's. So let's
Mhm,
say you do a 15-minute session. Then we will end up with 360 cc's of hydrogen. Now, if we drink hydrogen water at
mhm.
1.7 cc's per liter, we
Yeah.
approximately would have to drink 62 gallons to get the
Yeah.
same of 15 minutes of inhalation. And
Okay.
so that gives you a little bit of an idea on how much more powerful that inhalation is when it comes to how much hydrogen we can absorb in a certain time frame.
Mhm. When we talk about people getting intravenous vitamins per se, a lot of the one of the criticisms that we're taking something that we cannot even absorb. People end up peeing out vitamins and things. That is there any danger that people do not take in all this hydrogen? How do we know that
No,
your
and
body
that's the
can take it
great
in?
thing. So it's 100% safe, and here's why. So when we inhale it, or when we inhale the hydrogen, it's carried by our blood plasma to the cells. Now, the
Mhm,
saturation of hydrogen in our blood is between 1.8 and 2.2 cc's per liter. So
mhm,
now let's say it saturates. What happens with the excess? We simply exhale it. So all you're
mhm,
doing is you're wasting your time inhaling more hydrogen. So therefore, it's considered 100% safe because you cannot overdo it, and there's no
mhm,
potential harmful side effects.
mhm. And so let's just come back to then to when we inhale it, what exactly is in the gas? So we have obviously 21% oxygen, we have some carbon dioxide and nitrogen.
78,
Yeah,
78%
yeah.
nitrogen.
And you're saying a couple of percent of hydrogen?
Yeah, up to
4%?
4%.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. In the
And
atmosphere, is only 0.0005%. But what we're doing is we have a unit, and it's electrolysis. The electrolysis
mhm,
splits water,
mhm,
H2O, in oxygen gas and hydrogen gas. The oxygen gas we just let escape in the room. The
mhm,
hydrogen gas we then inhale with the air. So we get a 4% of
mhm.
hydrogen in, basically, that we're inhaling.
And this hydrogen gas, is it sitting as H2? What's it sitting at? How's
Yes,
it?
it's H2. It's two hydrogen atoms
Mhm.
bonded in a strong covalent bond, and it's neutral, so it's not reactive.
And how does the body break that? Is that
It doesn't have to break it. It's carried by the blood plasma. It enters,
right in?
because it's neutral, it enters through the cell membrane, and that's where it exerts its properties.
Now let's talk about, I mean, apart from the antioxidant benefits. Is there other benefits to hydrogen
Yes,
peroxide?
great. So antioxidant benefit is number one, but research show it's a very strong selective antioxidant, meaning it goes inside the cell, it neutralizes those harmful free radicals while sparing the beneficial ROS reaction oxygen species. Because many of those, as you know, free radicals are responsible for cellular signaling, cellular
Hmm.
homeostasis, etc. So that's kind of the key that research shows that yes, it reduces oxidative stress, but it does not interfere with our normal physiological processes within the cells and the mitochondria. So that's number one. Number
Hmm.
two, it's a very strong anti-inflammatory. So it reduces chronic and systemic inflammation in the body. Studies show that it increases the NRF2 pathway, which basically means it increases resistance to oxidants. It also shows that inhibits or reduces pro-inflammatory cytokines, such as TNF alpha, tumor necrosing factor alpha. And it also reduces most of your interleukins 1 alpha, 1 beta, 6, 8, and 10. And then in addition, it also helps regulate ERS, endoplasmic reticulum stress related factors, which helps in conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, irritable bowel, allergic reactions, etc. And we know, Doc, that most of us believe that the oxidative stress and inflammation, those two are the cause of basically all diseases. And that happens to be hydrogen's two top properties, and it can actually neutralize or be effective against those inside the cell, and most other components can do that. The third one, I would say, it helps with boost immune system. It regulates T cells, it modulates macrophages, it modulates the gut immune axis, it supports natural killer cells, and it kind of prevents us against those autoimmune diseases.
Hmm.
Then the fourth one, I would say, it promotes autophagy. For the listeners that don't know what autophagy is, basically a cellular process for the degradation and recycling of damaged or unnecessary components. So it's a recycling thing, which is very important for homeostasis, keeping balance in the body. And so studies show that molecular hydrogen, number one, due to its oxidative stress, prevents excessive autophagy, which is unnecessary cell death. Because it also modulates mDOR, mammalian target of rapamycin, it basically promotes beneficial autophagy in response to cellular stress. And then number three, in models of cerebral ischemia, we see that it supports cytoprotective autophagy in response to cellular injury. So it promotes that process of recycling damaged components in the body. And then
Hmm.
maybe the last one, I would say apoptosis, which is programmed cell death, where
Hmm.
we basically remove damaged or unnecessary components from the body. And we know that some components or some cells kind of resist that process of apoptosis, and then they linger in the body. And those cells are called zombie cells or senescent cells. And so
Cells, yeah.
basically, these cells, they stop dividing and they should die off, but they don't. And so they take up energy, they take up space, they take up nutrients without providing any actionable function in return. And those are called the zombie cells. And so what research shows that molecular hydrogen also helps promote or regulate that apoptosis, get rid of those unnecessary cells in our body. So when we
Hmm.
put that all together, we can see how it has those great properties, but at the same time it can execute those properties inside the cell, also the brain cells, because it's neutral and so small. Research also shows it easily crosses the blood brain barrier, and we know in conventional medicine that even medications that have an effect on other parts of the body cannot cross the blood brain barrier, and therefore many times we have limited treatment options when it comes to those neurodegenerative diseases like dementia, Alzheimer, Parkinson's, brain tumors, etc.
Have you seen any cases, I guess, of people having results? I mean,
Yes, of course. Yes,
like,
there.
I mean, do you have to be unwell, or can you even be a healthy person
No,
and see?
I do it. I do it 1 hour a day because think about it.
Wow.
I'm an athlete too, so it also has a lot of studies on its effect on mitochondria. We know it enters
Mm.
the cell, and
Mhm.
mitochondria now, most longevity specialists and anti-aging doctors, they believe that it all starts with our mitochondrial health. If we keep
Mhm.
our cells and mitochondria healthy, you're bulletproof against all diseases. So, but I always like to talk about the numbers too because they're so incomprehensible. We have 37 trillion cells. but each cell has a few hundred to hundreds of thousands of mitochondria, each one of them. So our skin cells, for example, only have a few hundred. Our more energy intensive cells, like our brain, our muscle, our liver, they have thousands to tens of thousands mitochondria per cell. But our
Mhm.
heart, responsible for every beat, right, has hundreds of thousands of mitochondria in one cell. So think about this: 37 million cells, hundreds to hundreds of thousands of mitochondria. Now, each mitochondrion produces about 2 billion ATP per minute. 2 billion ATP. 37 trillion cells, thousands of mitochondria, 2 billion ATP per minute. So we produce hundreds of quadrillions of ATP per day to sustain the 1.8 quadrillion chemical reactions per second. Actually, we produce and recycle 3 to 400 pounds of ATP per day. All right.
Wow.
So next
Huh.
time somebody asks you if you're busy, doctor, just say extremely. Right, but just to give you an idea, so what the studies show, what hydrogen does on a mitochondrial level, again, because mitochondria, as you know, they produce energy to a process called oxidative phosphorylation, which stores the energy in form of ATP. It provides 90% of the cellular energy. Now, these mitochondria are producing energy, but they're also producing what? Waste, ROS, reactive oxygen species, free radicals. And so, again, these free radicals can cause damage, oxidative stress to the mitochondria. But
Mhm.
hydrogen gets in there and prevents that whole process, so we can keep on producing that energy. So it has a selective antioxidant property, or inside the cell, anti-inflammatory, increases energy production. It's cyto and mitoprotective. It stimulates mitophagy, the damaged mitochondria. They get recycled, and it also stimulates mitochondrial biogenesis, the making of new mitochondria. So, from
Mhm.
a longevity point of view, from an athletic performance point of view, you certainly want to do that. But also disease prevention, because we know inflammation, oxidative stress causes these diseases.
Mhm.
So, healthy you and I, we should inhale this every day so we can stay bulletproof and keep everything at a low.
What have you seen of personal experience or from others around you with the use of this type of treatment?
Yeah, sure. Much better sleep, more energy, even if you do it before you go to the gym, faster recovery. So, healthy people experience those things for sure.
Mhm.
Better performance, better sleep, those types of things. But yeah, our clients too, especially neurodegenerative diseases, I think could benefit a lot, because it's something that immediately when we inhale, it goes into the brain. And when you think about it, stops these progressive diseases in its tracks, because it starts protecting inside those neurons, inside the cell. It starts protecting all these cellular structures. So,
Mhm.
we see good results. And that's why studies show 170 diseases right now have a positive effect from molecular hydrogen. And people say, how is that possible? Well, I hope when we discuss its effect on biology, physiology, its effect on a cellular mitochondrial level, you can see that it has a positive effect on everything that you would study, because we have a positive effect on the smaller structures in our body. If we keep those healthy, everything else will be healthy too.
Just a quick aside about, people think about the benefits of, let's say, alkaline water. Is some of this benefit coming from hydrogen? Because you said that if there's increased hydrogen, then you
Yes,
possibly
actually, it
benefit.
is, because alkaline water not necessarily gives any benefit, because it's, if you drink it, guess what happens in the stomach, right? So
Right, right,
it's a
right,
little
right.
bit of a
Okay,
hoax, but it's
right.
actually one of the ways, or one of the initial ways hydrogen was produced, right? Because you have these hydrogen tablets. I wouldn't suggest them necessarily, but you can get hydrogen
I've
from
seen
it.
them.
Yeah.
Hydrogen, yeah, tablets. People
So
could
what
dissolve
happens
them.
is those tablets are elemental magnesium, and when you put them in water, the magnesium will change the pH,
Mm,
make it more alkaline, which releases hydrogen, because it
mm,
needs to release that H plus, because otherwise it wouldn't be alkaline. So that's why they would say you can do it that way with the tablets, and you will produce hydrogen, but you'll have to drink it immediately because it's unstable, right? And you really don't know how much you're going to get, but it's the easiest way to produce hydrogen is just change the pH of your water, and that's what those tablets are based on.
mhm. So even when people are drinking the hydrogen-produced water from one of those, let's say, flasks, that also has a certain hours of limit,
Yeah,
right?
very good question. So the tablets I talked about, which is a chemical reaction producing hydrogen, it's unstable. You got to drink it immediately. Now, even those to-go bottles or the machines that you saw at the A4M convention, they all work by electrolysis, splitting that water in oxygen gas, hydrogen gas. There's many different devices and quality devices for sure. There's certain things we have to, as a consumer or as a doctor, have to look at because the better devices would use a PEM proton exchange membrane, such as an SPE, solid polymer electrolyte membrane, because those
Mhm.
membranes allow the protons to get through. So we get a true clean separation of oxygen and hydrogen, which produces then pure hydrogen 99.99%. Because in the medical field, we certainly don't want to have any harmful byproducts or other gases produced by oxidizing the equipment or the machinery or the catalyst.
What could be the potential pitfalls of purchasing one of those things where there's some other byproducts produced? Like what are we
Yes,
talking
so the
about?
cheap equipments, right? So
Yeah.
that's one of the educational things. So when you look at equipment, we need to have a guarantee on pure molecular hydrogen, and the way you know it is asking what kind of membrane they use, right? So it needs to be a proton exchange membrane. Number two, I would say we need to ask about runtime. Runtime means is how long can I keep the machine on running before I have to shut it down. The longer the better, because it indicates with what materials the catalyst and the piece of equipment is made with. And what we're really looking for is white gold, platinum, titanium. Many of the machines are plastic and then coated with a line of platinum, which may be good for home use because you're only going to use it an hour. But you're in a clinic and you're one patient after the other. You don't want the material to oxidize because now you get all kinds of other gases, right? So you don't want to
Mhm.
get something cheap from China that's plastic because you're going to
Mhm.
inhale the plastic, is basically what it is. So look at that runtime. The better pieces of equipment have a larger tank because they have a larger runtime. They got to produce more hydrogen, a tank
Mhm.
for the distilled water and the electrolysis. The better devices probably also have sensors, which will indicate is hydrogen produced, how much is produced, what's the purity. So basically, a feedback system to you, the consumer, on what's going on, right? So sensors to monitor certain parameters. And then some of the high end devices also have what we call features. They have goggles for eye conditions, they have
Hmm.
headphones for ear conditions or
Yeah, I
try to
heard
get
about that.
hydrogen.
You could put it in through the ears too.
Yeah,
I think I heard that that's possible, right? When
you
the
can
hydrogen
put it
just
in through the
goes through.
ears for ear conditions, but also if you get it in the ear, it also has easy access to the brain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just diffuses through the middle ear,
Yeah.
and goes right through the wall of the ear
Yeah.
canal. Is
It,
that
it,
what's
it
happening?
can it can enter anywhere. Yes.
So theoretically, one could put over the
Yeah.
skin.
Yeah.
There must be hydrogen infused skin
Yes.
systems, I
Yes.
assume.
They're starting to use hydrogen now as a beauty product too, like creating a mist for the hydrogen to have its effect on the dermal layers, etc. But
Yeah,
yes.
very interesting.
Yeah.
We're gonna have in show notes a way for people to purchase a system of their own, inhaled. I think it's at hydroheal.com, if I remember, and we'll have a code for them to get a discount. And where could people reach you if they're interested in learning more? Where are you on? Which
Yeah,
platforms?
I'm not a big social media guy, but everything's on my website, biohackingunlimited.com. All my
Okay.
books are there. You can schedule a free Zoom call with me if you want to talk. A
Okay.
keynote speaking page is there. My mentorship programs, my virtual online trainings are there. Everything's at biohackingunlimited.com.
Biohackingunlimited.com.
Even
And
this
tell
book,
me
even this
what
book.
molecular alchemy. Perfect. Okay, we should have a link to that as well in
Yeah.
the show notes. Is there anything that you're working on this year that's your next project, or
Yes,
you're
I
thinking of
just finished the book on PEMF because you were walking around and there's so many quote unquote healing frequencies, and I always
Mhm.
had a little bit of a question about those. I just finished my research on those, and I actually was my hypothesis was right. It's like the majority of those things do not work. So you always have
Hmm.
to be careful because many of those things, they don't have the scientific background and they really don't work. That doesn't mean the people selling them are ill-willed. They probably believe in the product, but when you
Hmm.
dive into those products, you really need some solid scientific background, and there needs to be a way of measuring that you actually get those benefits. And so that was my latest project. You can find that book too, PEMF Unplugged, which educates you on the things you shouldn't buy that are not going to work. Yeah.
Okay, that would be amazing. I think we should do a separate talk on that because I've
Sure.
had a lot of questions about that
Great.
and your conflicting answers on the validities of it.
Yeah, we
So,
can do a show on that. Just reach out.
all right, thank you so much. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome. Take care.
Awesome. Hi, I hope you enjoyed today's talk with Dr. Mike Van Thielen. It was really interesting. We learned all about the molecular basis of hydrogen, how it works, how can inhaled hydrogen work on improving your health as a super antioxidant, improving autophagy, decreasing inflammation, improving your energy production, and keeping those mitochondria really healthy. So there's a lot of benefits to molecular hydrogen that I got here. We're going to have a device in our clinic for those who want to just do this inhaled hydrogen treatment. I hope you enjoyed it. Take a look at the links in the show notes if you'd like to get a machine for yourself. If you like this video, like and subscribe and share. It gets the word out and helps us with that algorithm to make sure other people get this type of information. We'll see you next time. Take care. If you enjoyed today's podcast and you felt you learned something that can help you on your journey, please hit subscribe, like, and I'd love it if you'd share this with a friend who you think would also benefit and get inspired. And leave us a review. We're always looking for feedback on how to deliver more value to you. So take care. Until next time, I'm Dr. G from Peak Human Labs Podcast.